What's up, guys? Today I got sent out to fix a 2010 Infiniti G35. He had an issue with his map sensor, and he also needed an oil change. But with all that being said, this is how it went, so let's get into it. So when I finally arrived and met the owner, he said he couldn't pass his smog check because he had a PEO 106 code, and his smog technician told him to buy the map sensor. So now I'm just confirming with my scanner that that is the only code that he had. It looks like it's the only one, so sounds right. So let's replace. I guess let's try to clean the sensor first, see if that helps, and then replace the whole sensor if it doesn't work. So cool, let's do it. And I know I was kind of mumbling right there, but I basically said I'm not just going to replace his sensor just because he had a check engine light related to that map sensor, but I'm going to try to clean the sensor first to see if that resolves the check engine light. And if it doesn't, then I'm just going to replace the sensor and continue with the oil change. So there's just 5 10mm bolts to replace this beauty cover. He only had 4. So I'm just gonna take the bolts and put them to the side, and the whole beauty cover just pops right off. And to be honest, this is probably the easiest sensor to replace on the whole car. This is where it lives. You just unplug the harness right here, and I'm just checking the connector just to see if there's any corrosion in there, but it all looked pretty good. Now there's just a 10mm bolt, you just pop it right off. Just gonna lay it on the side. And no, I'm not gonna use my magnet tray. I'm too lazy to use it. Now I'm just grabbing this little pry tool because it didn't come off by hand. And you don't have to pry this baby too much. It should just pop right out. And boom, there it is. Now I'm just comparing these suckers side by side, and they look pretty identical to me. But I found out that the one that was already in there was aftermarket, and I think the owner bought it with an aftermarket map sensor already in there. So right now I'm gonna grab my little map sensor cleaner. $13 for this little can. But hey, if it works, it works. But what do you guys think? You think cleaning it is gonna fix the problem? Or am I gonna have to replace the whole map sensor? Alright, cool. After a couple of toots of the map sensor cleaner spray, we're gonna set it down. I'm gonna start to reinstall it, and it dissolves pretty fast, so don't worry about it still being wet. And I suppose I could have used brake cleaner to clean it all up, but I know that these little things are sensitive and they're real expensive. It cost almost $200 for an aftermarket, and the OEM sensors cost even more. So they are some sensitive little sensors, I'd say. Maybe that's why they call them sensors. Anyone? Alright, anyways, I'm gonna put this bowl back on. Torque it down with my impact till it's on the brink of snapping, but not quite. Alright, now we're gonna focus on the oil change. Just slide my jack underneath, just like so. Gotta get down and dirty, make sure it's all lined up. and make sure it's all lined up before you start jacking it up. And boom, now you can start jacking it up straight up. And I'm only gonna jack one side. I'll probably get some criticism for this, but I'm just doing an oil change. So I'm just gonna slide my stand under here, my big 6-ton stand. And yeah, they're overkill, but I've been using them for years, so. And I know that they're better than those little Walmart jack stands, those little 1.5 ton ones. Those ones almost killed me when I was working on the Honda Accord. I had the whole front end of the Accord on those 1.5 jack stands. I was loosening a suspension bolt with a breaker bar, and half of my body was underneath the car, and then I just heard a loud and nothing fell to the ground. But I realized that one of the teeth on the jack stands got lowered down one tooth, and I raised the teeth up on both jack stands to the same amount. So that's how I realized it dropped down one tooth. But I wasn't gonna allow a little jack stand to end my life. I ain't no weenie like that. But anyways, now we're gonna loosen this plastic oil pan cover. This is where it resides. Just gonna use my impact. And there should have been 2 bolts here, but some kind gentleman broke the plastic tab, so it makes my life easier now. And I reckon it was a 14mm socket to loosen this drain plug. And yes, I'm using a 99-cent store oil pan drain. Don't be hating. Still does the job. Now we're gonna let that sucker drain out. The oil is pretty black, and I do have a kit of drain plug washers, but this washer looked pretty good still, so I'm gonna end up reusing it. So now I'm gonna pop out my oil filter wrench. I tried to loosen it by hand, but the last guy over tightened it. But yeah, it's one of those where you have to dent the oil filter just to take it off. So finally I cracked it loose. Now I can manhandle that sucker till it spins right off. And you're not a man until you get some oil on your hands. But now I'm just slowly waiting to drain all the fluid out. And here comes the rest of the filter. And it looks like jacking the car up on one side didn't really affect how much oil came out. It might have actually worked in my favor because the drain plug was facing the passenger side. So all of the oil kind of tilted towards that hole. And it looks like I drained even more oil by using my smart/lazy method. So here comes the oil filter. It's the STP from AutoZone. But luckily I still had some oil on my hand, because you're not a man unless you have oil on your hand. So I used that oil to lube up the filter. And now I'm just putting the filter back and getting this car ready to go. Not gonna show me resetting the light or anything. I'm not gonna show me resetting the oil light or anything like that. But last thing to mention as I'm adding this oil, I read the live data after I cleaned that map sensor, and it was reading crazy grams per second. I forget how many exactly, but when I replaced it with the new sensor, the live data indicated it was working correctly. But the check engine light didn't come back after I had it running for about 10 minutes. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.